The New York Mets coaching staff is starting to come together, with the latest addition being Eric Chavez, a coach they poached from the Yankees. Going to discuss all of that on today's episode of Locked On Mets.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans listening to Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listen every day. Locked On Mets is free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. Now, the New York Mets coaching staff is starting to fill out. We know Buck Showalter, of course, is the manager, but he now has a first base coach in Wayne Kirby, a third base coach in Joey Cora, and a hitting coach and Eric Chavez joining the incumbent pitching coach Jeremy Hefner. On today's episode, going to discuss all of the latest hires. In the first segment, I will detail the latest addition, which is Eric Chavez, who was just hired a couple weeks ago to be the Yankees' assistant hitting coach, and the Mets poached him. So that's always fun to see the Mets get a little something on the crosstown rival, even if it's something as insignificant as a coaching switch. But we'll talk about that. Then in the second segment, I will detail the Wayne Kirby hire, and then we'll close things out talking about Joey Cora and what is left for the Mets as they continue to round out this coaching staff for the 2022 season. Before we get to any of that, though, I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. If you want to find any of my work, follow me on Twitter at FinkelsteinRyan. You can also find some of my writing about the Mets at justbaseball.com. I also write about all things Major League Baseball. I wrote a piece about Juan Soto, which we discussed on yesterday's episode. And I also just wrote one that should go up on Friday about Trevor Story, a little bit based on a podcast I did earlier this week as well, just talking about his free agency and how he's still one of the more valuable and interesting pieces left on the board who could follow Marcus Semion's path this offseason. Now, let's talk, though, about Eric Chavez, because we all love to see the Mets pull a fast one on the Yankees, even though it wasn't really pulling a fast one. The Yankees had to give him permission to interview, although if it's for a promotion, these situations are pretty clear cut. You can hire somebody away from another team if they're getting a better role. With the Yankees, Chavez was going to be the assistant hitting coach. With the Mets, he is now the hitting coach. So that is a promotion. That's not a lateral move. That is why the Mets were able to make this hire. This is a Billy Eppler move because there is a lot of connection here between Eric Chavez and Billy Eppler. Now, when Billy Eppler was part of the Yankees front office, he was credited, according to Pat Ragazzo of Sports Illustrated, with signing Eric Chavez back in 2011. Now, Eric Chavez, of course, had a great career with the Oakland Athletics, a 17-year big league career, 13 seasons with the Athletics, 6 Gold Gloves, and a Silver Slugger. Then he spent 2 years with the Yankees and 2 years with the Diamondbacks. When Billy Eppler ended up going over to the Angels, he had Chavez follow him. Chavez spent 1 year in the Yankees front office. Then he went with Billy Eppler as a special assistant to Eppler in Los Angeles. And then throughout that time, continued to get more responsibility. He was a finalist to be the manager in 2019 when Brad Ausmus ultimately got the job. So this is a move where Billy Eppler is bringing one of his guys in and putting him on the coaching staff. Now, when it comes to his experience, it's not as great as some of the other names we're going to talk about later on in the show. Wayne Kirby and Joey Cora are long-standing coaches at the big league level. Obviously, Buck Showalter has all the experience in the world. This is a more fresh hire. This is bringing in a young mind that should be able to relate to the players. He hasn't been out of the game for that long, still played within the last decade. So he is going to be able to talk with these players well. He is a former star player, so that holds some gravitas with some of the stars the Mets have, like a Francisco Lindor, Pete Alonso, Starling Marte, all of these guys. Eric Chavez should be able to relate to all of them on a pretty wide level there. And he was in consideration to be Buck Showalter's bench coach, which is pretty illuminating because it appears like the Mets are looking for an analytically driven bench coach that can sit next to Buck Showalter and really help him with maybe some of his deficiencies as a veteran manager that's not as up to date on all of these new age technologies and analytics that are being brought into the game. So the fact that Chavez, who Eppler knows really well, was considered for that role does tell you his level of knowledge when it comes to analytics. He probably is great at understanding this information, and they decide to put him in the hitting coach role. But it is good to have a younger mind, similar to Jeremy Hefner on the pitching coach side, where they are able to not only communicate with today's player, but understand all the elements that go into hitting nowadays, knowing that batting average isn't the most important thing, as Chavez said in one interview, that it's about hitting home runs. It's about understanding the new math when it comes to the game of baseball. I think all of those things point to an interesting hire and one that should be a solid one, I think, although we never really know, right? We never really knew what the difference was between Chili Davis and Hugh Quattlebaum. I've talked about this in the past. How am I supposed to know what makes a good third base coach or first base coach or a hitting coach for that matter? You just have to go based on what some people say. And even then, it's not often that someone's going to bash somebody publicly in an interview. So when Aaron Boone gets interviewed and talks about the latest hire, Eric Chavez, which he did a couple weeks ago, he spoke glowingly. And of course he's going to do that because at that time, Chavez was part of his coaching staff. But still, Aaron Boone did say in a lot of ways he blew me away. He's got a really good perspective on the game. He's very open-minded, which does lead more credence to that idea that he could be analytically driven and someone that is going to be able to take a lot of information in and disperse it to players. I also think that it's good to have this combination of younger coaches and older coaches who are in different stages of their career. Wayne Kirby, Joey Cora, Buck Showalter, they've been there, done that. They have all the experience in the world. They know how to build up a winner. They know how to get through the grind of a season. And then you have a Jeremy Hefner and an Eric Chavez in these roles that are very pivotal. You're a pitching coach and you're a hitting coach that are young, hungry coaches trying to establish their own careers. Maybe they have aspirations to be managers or to just have these roles for a very long time. They are going to be willing to put in all of the work, all those extra hours, doing all that research, all the things you have to do to stay on top of things. I think right now the Mets coaching staff looks great. I just like that this organization right now went from a period just like 6 weeks ago, maybe not even that long ago, where there was no GM, there was no manager, everything seemed in flux. They were a laughing stock. And suddenly you have Buck Showalter, Billy Eppler making decisions, plugging in respected baseball people. You made all those signings. It just seems like the Mets are on the right path to contending and to being a more respectable franchise this year. So that is a great sign. And part of that is bringing in some veteran base coaches that we will discuss in a minute. But before we get to that, I want to tell you about Built Bar. Built Bar is the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar. It is the new year, and that means New Year's resolutions. If you're about getting fit and getting healthier this year, this is where Built Bar should be part of your plan because it'll give you that treat that you will crave that is actually good for you. It makes it so much easier to stick to that resolution when you know you can get some chocolate in your diet and not feel bad about it. Protein bars that aren't chalky, waxy, that don't taste like a chemical spill. You'll want to eat Built Bars, and there's so many different flavors to choose from, so you can mix things up, whether that is the coconut almond bar, peanut butter brownie, raspberry, my personal favorite, cookies and cream, salted caramel, mint brownie, so many more. Built is always coming out with new limited time flavors, so check out Built.com to see what's new. And if you want to buy some Built Bars today, make sure that you use the promo code LOCK15, and you're going to get 15% off your next order. Again, that's promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at Built.com. So we already talked about the Billy Eppler hire. Now let's discuss what is clearly the Buck Showalter hire, which is bringing in Wayne Kirby to be the first base and outfield coach. Kirby spent from 2011 through 2018 with Buck Showalter in that exact same role with the Baltimore Orioles. This is one of his guys. This is someone that I'm sure he loves traveling on the road with, one of his really good friends. You bring him in, that makes Buck more comfortable. Wayne Kirby is going to be a great lieutenant for him, knowing how Buck likes to work. So that alone makes this a good hire. We don't really have to get too much deeper into this. This is Buck Showalter bringing one of his guys as a veteran manager. Absolutely has the gravitas to be able to do that. You want him to do that. You want him to be comfortable with his coaching staff while also not just bringing in all of his guys. So the Mets are mixing and matching here. And I think this is a really solid hire. There's always a coach or two that a longtime manager just always wants to work with. And it's clear that Wayne Kirby is that guy for Buck Showalter. He spent the last 2 seasons as the Padres first base coach, but became available after Jace Tingler was let go in October, and they were going through their own, overturn of their coaching staff with Bob Melvin being their new manager. The Angels apparently attempted to hire Kirby to their staff earlier in the offseason, but they could not reach a deal. So now Kirby becomes the Mets first base coach. This adds another former player to the staff, as is Joey Cora and Eric Chavez. So obviously you're bringing that player's perspective into the dugout, which is common with all of these coaches. But I think this is just another good move. Again, you're bringing someone that's comfortable with Buck Showalter. He had a long playing career, and then he actually started his coaching career, if I'm not mistaken, or no, he played his final big league season, with the Mets back in 1998. It was Joey Cora that started his coaching career with the Mets, and we're going to discuss Cora more in just a minute. BetOnline has you covered with more props, odds, and lines than ever before as football continues to march through the College Bowl season and the football playoffs. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all the sports action this season. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit just by using the promo code LOCKEDON. From basketball, football, NHL, boxing, and UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. Bet online, where the game starts. All right, last but not least, the Mets have hired Joey Cora to be their third base coach. I actually believe, timeline-wise, that was the first hire they made of these three. Guess I went a little bit out of order here, but Joey Cora brings another veteran coach to the staff. He is 56 years old, which gives you 3 members over 55 of that coaching staff, with Joey Cora at 56, Kirby at 57, and of course, Buck Showalter as the eldest statesman at 65. Joey Cora is the older brother of Alex Cora, of course, the manager of the Boston Red Sox, previous bench coach for the Houston Astros. Joey Cora was a first-round pick in 1985. He is a Cape Cod League Hall of Famer, and he had an 11-year big league career. And then his coaching career actually began, as I alluded to before, mistaking it for Wayne Kirby. For Joey Cora, his coaching career began with the New York Mets. He actually coached a young David Wright in the rookie leagues all those years ago. He was later named the third base coach for Ozzie Guillen, his former teammate with the Chicago White Sox in 2003. They won a World Series together in 2005. He stayed on Ozzie Guillen's staff, eventually became the bench coach all the way through 2011 when Ozzie Guillen left to go to Miami. Who followed him? None other than Joey Cora to be his bench coach down there. Kind of similar to what we were talking about before with Wayne Kirby being that guy for Buck Showalter. Joey Cora was that for Ozzie Guillen at one time. He was out of professional coaching for a couple of years. Then in 2016, took a manager job for the AA Pirates team. He would later become their third base coach in 2017. Held that role through the 2021 season before he was let go. I know there was some reporting, or not even reporting, some, people found out that Padres fans were not thrilled with Joey Cora as a third base coach during the last couple of years. He's very aggressive, and at times that ran into some outs for the Pirates. But you got to understand, he was coaching a Pirates offense that needed to squeeze as many outs as possible. And sometimes when you're the third base coach and you're trying to win games, you're just trying to find some way to put a run on the board. I think you're even more over anxious to be sending guys, because you just hope that, hey, if there's a bad throw to the plate, we can get a run on the board. And how many runs are the Pirates really scoring? With the Mets, they're going to have a lot more speed on this roster. You have Francisco Lindor, who's a great base runner. You just added Starling Marte, who is an excellent base runner. Mark Canha is able to move around the base as well. He's a solid base runner. So with those additions, with Brandon Nimmo still in place, Jeff McNeil can certainly run around the base as well. Not that he is the fleetest of foot, but he is a smart player with his baseball IQ. Hey, I even like Pete Alonso sometimes. When he gets it moving, Pete Alonso, I wouldn't call him fleet of foot either, but he gets that train going. He can move around those bases as well. So I think that over aggressiveness is not going to be a problem with this Mets team. And what you're adding is another, coach with a decade of MLB coaching experience to this staff that is trying to win now. And the last piece of information that is interesting, and this was courtesy of the Athletics, Britt, I'm bad with names, Britt Giroli. Apologize if I mispronounced that. But she said that he actually grew up, Cora did, in the same town as Francisco Lindor in Puerto Rico. And Lindor grew up a big fan of Joey Cora. So that is interesting as well. This is, in some respects, a Lindor hire. Not that he's the one that made the call. He's not able to communicate with the team at all right now, but more that this is probably a hire that might have Lindor in mind a bit. It's not that it's all about Francisco Lindor, but that is part of this. I do like that the Mets are forming a staff here that's multicultural. Wayne Kirby, an African-American. You have Joey Cora from Puerto Rico, and he obviously is going to be able to relate to the Latin American player very well. You got Eric Chavez and Jeremy Hefner, two recent players. So you just got a lot of different elements. You got some age differences. You got some cultural differences. That should be good to be able to accommodate a clubhouse of diverse personalities. I think that is really good for the New York Mets. But overall, the bottom line that I get back to is just competence. This, again, seems like an organization that is competent now. And that's just not something that you can, take lightly after watching this team for so many years. So it's great to see them move in the right direction. There's still more hires to be made. They still have to hire a bench coach. They're still going to have to hire an assistant pitching coach, likely a bullpen coach, one, if not two assistant hitting coaches. They're going to fill out this coaching staff. Steve Cohen's going to spread his resources all over the place. This is another place where it's not going to show up in the headline. We don't know what Wayne Kirby is going to make when it comes to his salary, but Steve Cohen is certainly going to be paying top rate for all of his coaches. That opens the door to be able to hire whoever you want to bring into the equation here. And it just makes the Mets an even better team moving forward. This is a team that suddenly people are gravitating towards, right? You want to go from the Yankees to the Mets if you're Eric Chavez, because not only can you be back with your boy Billy Eppler, but you have a chance to be the hitting coach on a team that has Starling Marte, that has all of this talent with Pete Alonso, Francisco Lindor, Brandon Nimmo, Mark Canha, whatever it may be. This is going to be a really good team. That's what the perception is right now, and that is a change of pace if you are a Mets fan. But as always, thank you for listening. Make sure you follow, rate, review wherever you get your podcast. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at Finkelstein Ryan. Follow the show at Locked On Mets. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listen every day. Now for your second listen, check out Locked On Bets, hosted by your boy Q and handicapping expert Lee Sterling. Get daily picks, blowout specials, wrong team favorite picks, and Lee Sterling's lock of the day by following Locked On Bets wherever you get podcasts.